I should have known better than to hand over my car keys to my younger brother Daniel. But there he was, standing in my mother's kitchen with that familiar expression, the one that said he'd already made up his mind and was just going through the motions of asking. "I need to borrow your car for a few days," he announced, not really asking. "Mine's acting up again, and I've got this important client meeting in Charleston. You don't mind, right?" Mom looked up from where she was arranging flowers on the dining table. "Sarah barely uses that fancy car anyway. She's always driving around in that old Corolla. Let Daniel take it. He needs it more." The fancy car was a Mercedes S-Class, sleek black with cream leather interior. I'd driven it to Sunday dinner that afternoon, something I did once a month to visit family. Daniel was already pocketing the key fob, his confident smile suggesting this was a done deal. "Sure," I said, sipping my sweet tea. "Just bring it back in one piece," Daniel grinned. "Thanks, sis." I knew you'd come through. Unlike some people who actually need their cars for work, you're just sitting behind a desk all day, right? He was heading toward the door before I could respond. This client meeting could be huge. I need to look successful, you know? Can't roll up in my beat-up Chevy. After he left, Mom came over and patted my shoulder. "You're such a good sister, Sarah. Daniel works so hard at that insurance agency. He deserves a break." I didn't mention that Daniel had called me 6 times in the past 4 months asking for money. Small amounts, usually between $300 and $800. Emergency car repairs, overdue rent, a debt collector threatening legal action. I'd sent the money every time, just like I'd been quietly paying for Mom's prescription medications for the past 2 years after her health insurance changed and left her with impossible co-pays. Being underestimated has its advantages. People don't scrutinize your life too closely. They don't ask uncomfortable questions. You become background noise at family gatherings, the reliable one who shows up and nods and keeps the peace. My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "You're a lifesaver. I owe you one." I sent back a thumbs up and finished my tea. Mom returned to her flowers. "You should come to the beach house in July. The whole family will be there. Daniel's bringing his new girlfriend Amanda. Your cousin Rachel is bringing her fiancé. It would be nice if you came." "I'll see if I can get time off," I said, which was my standard response. "You always say that," Mom sighed. "Whatever job you have at that tech company, surely they can spare you for one weekend. You work too much for someone who isn't even in management." Tech company. That's what she thought I did. Some kind of administrative role at a technology firm. Something vague and unimportant that explained the modest apartment I'd told her I rented and the sensible car I drove most days. She had no idea what I actually did, and I'd stopped trying to explain years ago. "I'll check my schedule," I repeated. The following Monday morning, I was reviewing quarterly reports when my phone rang. James from Fleet Operations. "Miss Thompson, we have a situation. Vehicle 17 just crossed state lines into South Carolina. The GPS shows it left the authorized zone yesterday evening around 6 p.m. I pulled up the fleet management dashboard on my computer. There it was, the Mercedes' route highlighted in red. Unauthorized interstate travel, no trip authorization filed, multiple geofencing violations. The system was automatic. Every vehicle in our corporate fleet had GPS tracking, insurance compliance monitoring, and movement restrictions. When you operate 49 vehicles across 3 states for executive transport services, you don't take chances with liability. One accident involving an unauthorized driver in an uninsured situation could destroy everything. "Should I send the standard notification?" James asked. I watched the little dot on my screen, currently on Highway 17 heading toward Charleston. Daniel probably had the windows down, music playing, feeling like he'd made it. "Send it," I said. The notification went to 3 places simultaneously: the driver's phone, the vehicle's registered owner, and our legal compliance department. "It's automated, triggered the moment a vehicle breaches its authorized parameters. You can't just take a company car across state lines without proper documentation. Insurance coverage changes, liability shifts, state transportation regulations differ." I'd spent 18 months working with our attorneys to develop these protocols after a near disaster with an employee who'd taken a vehicle on an unauthorized road trip. My phone rang 12 minutes later. "Sarah, what the hell?" Daniel's voice was tight. "I just got this weird message about unauthorized vehicle use and GPS tracking and immediate return required. Your name is all over it. What's going on?" I set down my coffee. "What message?" "Something about Anderson Executive Transport Services and federal compliance violations. It says the vehicle is registered to a corporation." "Why is a car you drive registered to a corporation?" "Oh," I said calmly, "that's because it is a corporate vehicle." Silence. I could hear highway noise in the background, the smooth purr of the Mercedes' engine. Then a woman's voice. Probably Amanda. "What's wrong? Who are you talking to?" "It's Sarah," Daniel said. "Apparently this isn't her personal car." More silence. I waited, letting him process. "A corporate car?" His voice had gone up an octave. "What corporation?" "Anderson Executive Transport Services. I'm the founder and CEO. We provide executive transportation, corporate shuttle services, and logistics management for businesses across Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. The Mercedes is part of our premium fleet. Complete silence from Daniel's end. I could almost picture his face, the confusion, the disbelief. Daniel, you still there? You're what? Who? I've been running the company for 7 years. Started it when I was 25 with a business loan and 2 used town cars. We've grown significantly since then. Currently, we operate 49 vehicles with 62 employees. I heard him say something to Amanda, his voice muffled. Then back to me. Sarah, I'm on my way to a client meeting. I understand. Unfortunately, you're doing it in a vehicle that's subject to commercial transportation regulations and federal compliance standards. The notification has already been logged with our legal department. They'll need you to complete an incident report when you return the vehicle. An incident report? His voice cracked. Sarah, this is insane. It's standard procedure. Nothing to worry about, really. Just paperwork. I pulled up the compliance documentation on my second monitor. You'll need to provide your current driver's license, proof of personal insurance, and sign an acknowledgement that you were informed of unauthorized use policies. Nobody told me there was a policy. Well, you did take the vehicle without asking about any restrictions or insurance implications. I kept my tone pleasant, professional. I assumed you'd checked. Amanda was definitely talking now, her voice urgent in the background. What's happening? Are we in trouble? Daniel, should we turn around? We need to turn around, Daniel said to her. Then to me, Sarah, please, can't you just call this off? Tell them it was a misunderstanding? The system is automated. Once it flags a violation, compliance has to investigate. Federal regulations aren't optional, especially for licensed commercial transport operators, but you own the company, which is exactly why I have to follow the rules more carefully than anyone. If anything happened, an accident, a traffic violation, anything, and it came out that I let family members use company vehicles without authorization, we could lose our operating license. The liability exposure alone would be catastrophic. I heard him telling Amanda they needed to find a place to turn around. Look, I said, softening slightly. Just head back, return the car to my office. James will send you the incident report form. Fill it out and return it within 48 hours. No penalties, just documentation for our files. Will there be consequences for you? For letting me take it? Probably a conversation with our compliance officer about maintaining proper boundaries between personal and professional assets. But that's my problem, not yours. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I swear I didn't know. I know you didn't. It's okay. Just return when you can do so safely. We'll handle the paperwork. He hung up without another word. I could imagine them on the highway. Amanda probably upset about the ruined trip. Daniel trying to explain how his boring older sister who worked some vague office job turned out to be running a multi-million-dollar transportation company. My desk phone rang. Patricia from legal. Sarah, I just saw the flag on vehicle 17. Your brother took a fleet vehicle into South Carolina without authorization. He thought it was my personal car. Patricia was quiet for a moment. How does someone mistake a corporate fleet vehicle for a personal car? By not asking questions, making assumptions. I pulled up the vehicle registration. He's turning around now. He'll file the incident report today. Sarah, you know I have to document this properly. I know. Do what you need to do. The board won't like it. They'll like it even less if we ignore protocol for personal relationships. That's the whole point of having protocols. Patricia sighed. You're right. I'll process the standard documentation. But Sarah, maybe keep company vehicles and family separate going forward. Lesson learned, Mom called 90 minutes later. Sarah, Daniel just called me very upset. Something about you running a company and tracking him with GPS. He's pulled over at a gas station near Columbia, and he sounds like he's going to cry. It's a corporate transportation company, Mom. We provide executive car services, shuttle operations, logistics consulting. The Mercedes is part of our commercial fleet, which means it has GPS tracking for insurance and regulatory compliance. Daniel didn't realize he was borrowing a company vehicle. Why didn't you tell us you owned a company? The question hung between us like smoke. I had tried to tell them. 5 years ago at Thanksgiving, I'd mentioned starting the business. Dad had said, "That's nice, honey," then changed the subject to Daniel's promotion to senior agent at his insurance office. 3 years ago, I'd brought it up when Mom worried about how I was managing financially. She'd patted my hand and said, "As long as you're happy, dear," then asked if I was seeing anyone special. Eventually, I stopped trying. It was easier to let them believe what they wanted to believe than to fight for recognition I didn't need. It never came up naturally, I said. Not naturally? Sarah, Daniel is out there thinking you're some kind of secretary or data entry person, and now he finds out you're running a whole company with GPS tracking and federal regulations. How big is this company? 49 vehicles, 62 employees. We did $6.2 million in revenue last year. Silence. I could hear her breathing, the faint sound of her television in the background. Million? Mom's voice was small. Million. We're actually in discussions with a larger firm about a potential partnership. If it goes through, the company valuation would be around $38 million. My stake would be approximately $24 million after paying investors and settling business debt. I heard her sit down. The television went silent. She'd muted it. We're expanding into Florida next year, I continued. That's why I was looking at properties in Jacksonville last month when I said I had a business trip. Not vacation rentals, Mom. Commercial properties for a new regional hub. We need warehouse space for vehicles, maintenance facilities, dispatch operations. The Jacksonville market is competitive, but we've identified a good location near the port. Sarah, Mom's voice shook slightly. Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you make us listen? I tried, Mom. Remember 3 years ago when Uncle Frank said I should try to get a real job with benefits? I told him I owned a business with 23 employees. He laughed and asked if I meant a food truck. What did you say? I said sure, something like that. Then I changed the subject because it was easier than explaining commercial transportation licensing to someone who'd already decided I wasn't worth taking seriously. Oh God. She was quiet for a long moment. I'm so sorry. It's fine, Mom. It's not fine. We've been treating you like you're struggling, like you need help, and you've been paying for my prescriptions for 2 years. Yeah, I kept my voice gentle. Your insurance change left you with copays you couldn't afford. I didn't want you choosing between medications and groceries while dealing with Dad's estate. She started crying then. Real crying, not the delicate tears she shed at sad movies. Daniel posted on Facebook last month, Mom said through sobs. He said you'd borrowed money from him because your car broke down and you couldn't afford repairs. I saw it. I believed it. I even commented with a sad face and a heart. I remembered that post. Daniel's performance of generosity, fishing for sympathy and likes. The truth was, I'd given him $800 for a supposedly urgent car repair that turned out to be a weekend trip to Hilton Head with Amanda. How he'd reframed that story for social media was his business. It's okay, Mom. Really. I gave Daniel that money as a gift. What he chose to do with it or how he represented it publicly is his concern. It's not okay. We've been so dismissive. Like your life doesn't matter because you're quiet about your success. And you just accepted it. Why did you just accept it? That was harder to answer. Why does anyone accept being underestimated? Sometimes it's easier than constantly defending yourself. Sometimes you get tired of proving your worth to people who've already decided who you are. Sometimes you realize your success doesn't need external validation from people who can't see past their own assumptions. I didn't need you to see it, Mom. I just needed to build it. But we should have seen it. We should have asked. We should have listened when you tried to tell us. Yes, I said softly. You should have. Daniel returned the Mercedes that evening. He showed up at my office. The office I'd told them was just where I worked, holding the key fob like it might explode. The Anderson Executive Transport Services headquarters was a 2-story building off Interstate 85, purchased 3 years ago when we outgrew our original leased space. The ground floor housed vehicle bays, maintenance stations, a driver's lounge, and dispatch center. The second floor was administrative offices, a conference room, and my office overlooking the vehicle yard. Daniel had never visited before. He stood in the reception area, looking around at the company logo on the wall, the photos of our fleet, the dispatch board showing real-time vehicle locations. I filed the incident report, he said quietly. James said everything was fine. No penalties. Thank you for handling that promptly. I appreciate your cooperation. He didn't move. His eyes kept scanning the space, taking in the professional environment. The employees moving purposefully through the building, the visible evidence of a successful operation. Sarah, I'm sorry. For taking the car. For everything. For assuming. For never asking what you actually do. For posting that thing on Facebook about lending you money when you gave me money. His voice cracked. For treating you like you're the failure in the family when you've been taking care of all of us. I gestured toward my office. Want to come up? We walked upstairs in silence. My office was modest but professional. Large windows, solid desk, comfortable chairs for client meetings, framed photos of company milestones on the walls. Daniel sat down heavily, staring at the view of the vehicle yard below where our fleet was arranged in neat rows. How long? He asked. How long what? How long have you been doing this? Running a company. Being successful. Being someone completely different from who I thought you were. 7 years. Started with a $20,000 small business loan and 2 used Lincoln Town cars. The first year I lived in a studio apartment and ate ramen because every dollar went back into the business. The second year I landed a contract with a law firm that needed reliable transportation for partners and clients. That was the turning point. Steady revenue, repeat business, a foundation to build on. You did all this alone? With a lot of help. I've got an incredible team. James, who you met, has been with me for 5 years. Patricia, our legal counsel, helped me navigate the regulatory maze when we expanded into interstate operations. Michelle runs day-to-day operations and keeps everything running smoothly. I couldn't do any of this without them. I looked at my brother, really looked at him. "Why are you here, Daniel?" "Not just to return the car. You could have dropped it off and left." He rubbed his face with both hands. "Amanda asked me a question this morning while we were driving back. She said, 'When was the last time you asked Sarah about her life?' Really asked, not just made small talk or asked for favors." And I couldn't answer. I couldn't remember the last time I asked about your work, your life, anything that mattered. I've been so focused on my own problems, my own career struggles, that I never bothered to actually know my own sister. "Daniel, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." He looked at me, his eyes red. "Amanda has 3 siblings. She talks to them every week. She knows what they do, what challenges they're facing, what makes them happy. When I told her I thought you worked in IT support at some tech company, she was horrified. She said if I can't even be bothered to know what my own sister does for a living, then I don't deserve to have a relationship with you. And she's right, so I told him. About the early days, the 18-hour workdays, the constant fear of failure. About landing that first major contract and crying in my apartment because it felt impossible and I'd done it anyway. About learning to manage people, navigate regulations, compete with established companies that had been doing this for decades. About the expansion into premium services, adding luxury vehicles for corporate clients who wanted their executives transported in style. About the contracts with tech companies, law firms, medical practices, financial services firms. About building something real and sustainable in mine. "Why didn't you tell us all this?" Daniel asked when I finally paused. "Why not just sit us down and explain? I tried multiple times. Nobody was listening. So you just gave up on us." "Not gave up. Just stopped trying to force it. I figured if you really wanted to know, you'd ask real questions. And if you didn't ask, maybe you didn't really want to know. That's brutal. That's honest." We sat in silence for a moment. Through the windows, I could see our evening shift drivers arriving, checking in with dispatch, preparing for corporate dinner runs and late airport pickups. "Can I see it?" Daniel asked suddenly. "The whole operation. I want to understand what you built." So I gave him the tour. The maintenance bays where our mechanics kept the fleet in perfect condition. The dispatch center where coordinators managed schedules, tracked vehicles, handled client requests in real time. The driver's lounge where employees took breaks between assignments. The conference room where I met with corporate clients and negotiated service contracts. "You built all this," Daniel said, standing in the middle of the dispatch center, looking at the wall of monitors showing vehicle locations across 3 states. "With a lot of help, a lot of loans, a lot of sleepless nights." I gestured around the space. "But yes, I built it." He stopped in front of the company timeline wall in the main hallway, photos and captions marking major milestones. First vehicle purchased. First major contract. 50th employee hired. Interstate expansion approval. "Your name is on the building," he said quietly. "On the business license, on the insurance policies, on every contract we sign. It's my company. I told people my sister worked in IT," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "When they asked what you did, I said something with computers because I genuinely didn't know. And that's on me, for never asking, for never caring enough to ask." Patricia appeared in the hallway. "Sarah, the Atlanta meeting is in 15 minutes. The contracts are ready for your review." "Thanks, Patricia. I'll be right there." Daniel stared as she walked away. "People call you Sarah with respect, like you're actually the boss. In formal contexts, they call me Miss Thompson. But yes, I'm the final decision maker on contracts, hiring, fleet expansion, strategic direction, all of it. You have meetings with Atlanta, and Charlotte and Raleigh and Jacksonville. We're negotiating expanded service contracts with multiple corporate clients. It's growth, Daniel. It's what successful businesses do." He laughed suddenly, a slightly hysterical sound. "I borrowed a company car to impress a client. A company car owned by my CEO's sister who I thought was struggling to make rent." "Oh my God, Sarah!" "To be fair, most of our fleet is practical sedans and SUVs. The luxury vehicles are less than 15% of our operation. They're for specific high-end clients who expect that level of service." "Stop being reasonable about this," Daniel said, gripping my arm. "I was awful. We were all awful. You deserved better. You weren't awful. You were just not paying attention. There's a difference. That's worse. It means we couldn't even be bothered to see what was right in front of us." I didn't have an answer because he was right. Being actively cruel would have at least meant they saw me clearly enough to aim their cruelty accurately. Being ignored, being underestimated, being invisible despite being present, that was its own kind of pain. Sunday dinner the following week was different. Mom had apparently called everyone. Daniel and Amanda, Uncle Frank and Aunt Carol, my cousins Jennifer and Michael. They were all there when I arrived, sitting in Mom's living room with expressions ranging from embarrassed to genuinely apologetic. "Sarah," Mom started immediately. "We wanted to talk." "Please don't make this into a big production," I said gently. "But it is a big deal," Uncle Frank said, his usually loud voice subdued. We've been treating you like you're barely getting by when you're the most successful person in this room. Probably more successful than all of us combined. I'm not trying to compete with anyone. You're worth $24 million if that partnership goes through, Daniel said. I looked it up. Business partnerships over a certain value are public information. Your company valuation is listed in the filings. Aunt Carol was staring at me like I'd transformed into someone else. 24 million. The company is potentially worth 38 million in a partnership scenario. My personal stake would be about 24 million after paying investors and settling debts. But that's only if we proceed with the partnership, and I haven't decided yet. Why wouldn't you take 24 million? Cousin Jennifer asked, genuinely confused. Because I like running the company. Because I built it from nothing, and I'm proud of what it's become. Because selling would mean walking away from 62 employees who depend on their paychecks, from clients who trust us with their transportation needs, from something I created. I looked around the room at my family, all these people who'd known me my entire life without really seeing me. Money isn't the point. It never was. Mom reached over and took my hand. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying before I arrived. Then what was the point? Building something that mattered. Proving to myself I could do it. Creating jobs. Solving problems. Being excellent at something difficult. I squeezed her hand. And yes, making enough money to help when someone needed it, even if nobody noticed where the help came from. We noticed, Daniel said quietly. We just didn't ask questions. We took your help and didn't wonder how you could afford to give it. Uncle Frank cleared his throat. Sarah, I owe you a serious apology. Last Thanksgiving, I told you to try getting a job in retail management, something stable with benefits. You said I should stop wasting time on internet business fantasies. He winced. Your transportation company isn't an internet fantasy. No, it's a federally licensed commercial transport operation with DOT compliance, commercial insurance policies, employment contracts, and retirement plans for all full-time staff. But I can see how you'd confuse the two. The room went quiet. Then Aunt Carol laughed, an unexpected burst of sound. She's roasting us, Aunt Carol said, still laughing. Sarah's roasting us and we absolutely deserve it. That broke the tension. Everyone started talking at once, asking questions, apologizing, trying to understand how they'd missed so much for so long. I answered what I could, deflected what felt too personal, and tried to navigate this strange new dynamic where my family actually saw me as I was. Later, when people were having coffee and dessert, Daniel pulled me aside. The Mercedes, he said without preamble. What would it cost to buy it from you? What? I want to buy the car I borrowed. Make it right financially, not just apologize. Daniel, you don't need to do that. Yes, I do. I took something that wasn't mine. Assumed it was fine because you're my sister and you always just deal with things. That's not acceptable. It doesn't become okay just because we're family. The Mercedes is 3 years old, about 38,000 miles. Fair market value around 43,000. He went pale. I can set up a payment plan, figure something out. Or, I said gently, you could just ask before borrowing things in the future. Communicate clearly, respect boundaries. Actually listen when people tell you about their lives. The car isn't the issue. It never was. He hugged me then, sudden and fierce. I'm going to be better, he promised. I'm going to actually know what's happening in your life instead of assuming I know. I'd like that. And I'm going to tell people the truth. When they ask about my family, I'm going to say, my sister runs a successful transportation company with 49 vehicles and millions in revenue. Not that she does something with computers. I smiled. That works too. The partnership discussions continued for 3 more months before falling apart. The larger firm wanted to slow our expansion timeline, integrate our operations into their existing structure, and fundamentally change the business model that had made us successful. I wasn't willing to compromise on the strategic direction or surrender the operational control that had gotten us this far. We stayed independent, which meant I stayed CEO, which meant continuing to build something I believed in at a pace that made sense. Mom started calling every Tuesday to ask about the business. Real questions about challenges and successes, not just polite small talk. She learned the names of my senior staff, asked about specific contracts, wanted to understand what DOT compliance actually meant. Daniel took me to lunch twice a month and actually listened when I talked about expansion plans, employee management, the complexities of scaling a service business. He introduced me to his friends as my sister, the CEO, with genuine pride instead of vague embarrassment. Uncle Frank sent me a LinkedIn connection request with a long note apologizing again for dismissing my work. He started referring potential clients my way, finally understanding what services we actually provided. The black Mercedes stayed in the fleet, Vehicle 17 with its GPS tracking and compliance monitoring and automated notification systems. Every time I saw it in the vehicle yard, I thought about that weekend. About Daniel taking the keys without asking, about Mom shrugging it off, about the moment when invisible became visible. Sometimes being underestimated is comfortable. It lets you move through the world without scrutiny, without pressure to perform in every interaction. There's freedom in being overlooked. But being seen, really seen for who you are and what you've built and what you're capable of, that's something else entirely. That's worth more than comfort, more than invisibility, more than any amount of family approval. I still drive my old Corolla most of the time. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Because the car you drive doesn't define success. The business you build does. The problems you solve do. The people you employ and serve do. And yes, the quiet satisfaction of knowing that when your family needs help, you can provide it, whether they understand where it comes from or not. That's worth everything.